Welcome to Stirring Strength, Perspectives on Mental Health and Addiction. I'm your host, Dean Anderson, and on today's show, we have Mark Rusciolelli. Did I get that right?
You did.
I nailed it. Awesome. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So we had the pleasure of meeting during the Sober Convention in downtown London, and you approached me with some passion and vigor to say, Dean, I got stuff I want to talk about and things that are important when it comes to mental health and addiction. So immediately we said, okay, well, let's get you in on the show. Absolutely. So one of the things that stood out to me, Mark, was you identifying as being somebody who works as a firefighter.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and also recognizing that there was things and complications as part of that. I would love for you to share a little bit about what it is you're doing or what you were doing with fire.
I thank you, Dean. I've been a firefighter since 2001, just 6 months previous to 9/11, and been very, very fortunate to be involved in such an amazing career. The one thing that during my journey that's really come to light is there's a real stigma with firefighters being, first of all, the people that people call heroes, people that we call you to help us. So to admit or to say we need help is not always easy, because it has always been kind of looked upon as a weakness or a kink in the armor. And I'm here to advocate for those or anyone else in first responding world that it's not a detriment. It's not a weakness. In fact, it's a massive strength to say that I am suffering or I have something that's not sitting well, that I need to get off my chest, that I need to open up about. And it's something, if I could go back 23 years and say, Mark, as a rookie, as a probationary firefighter, I would teach myself to do just that.
What is it that you think is the catalyst to that mentality of not being able to speak out or share? I'm sure there's a bunch of them. If you could share a couple of what it is that kind of gave you that perception that it wasn't all right to talk about those things.
There's a lot of things that we use for tools, and we have currently critical incident stress. We have peer support. We have avenues for reaching out, and we've definitely improved. But I feel for a long time that it's still looked upon as a step backwards, that we shouldn't be needing it, even though we don't have psychology degrees. We don't have the ability to know how to diffuse what we've seen, because we don't know on a given day what we're going to. And we can't prepare ourselves. And on top of that, we have lives ourselves. Some have kids, marriages, whatever, that need addressing and need your full attention. And to make you a complete person, father, husband, spouse, and firefighter, I feel like we need to start reaching forward for the help that's available. So I'm here to advocate. I can't change what's been done, but I can advocate for the future and reaching out. There's always been that stigma where it's some black humor that's no longer acceptable, but finding ways to kind of talk through very difficult times.
Right. So we recognize we can't go back and change the past, but part of the beauty of this, what we're doing here today, is to have conversations about those things to prevent the future, and have objective, compassionate, empathetic talks that say, hey, you know what, we can make something different moving forward. So these conversations are so important. Looking back when you said taking a step backwards, and my brain went to in what way? I want to know, like, what do you mean by it's taking a step backwards?
Well, it's a great question. In my case, it was finding vices. So then I would numb out. So my mental health or lack of addressing what was happening with how I was feeling, I would use alcohol.
Okay.
Or I would use avoidance. Or sometimes my emotions, anger became a favorite one when I was not an angry person. So it wasn't till I started going through different periods of my career now that I look back where I had some trouble with alcohol and I had little anger seasons, I guess, where that was what I was using as my crutch to get me through. It was by no means, it was more of a Band-Aid than a core fix. And I think that's the big thing, that the misnomer a lot of people have, is thinking that we can use vices and they come in many different, it's not just alcohol, it may be workaholics, it could be food, it could be many different avenues, but I feel that we're just putting Band-Aids on broken bones. We're not really addressing what's at the core. And it's being able to open up to heal, because once people can feel, and I've been very fortunate to be a recipient of that, it changes your life, and you can let go of things, and you learn tools, self-regulation and grounding and so on, breath work, these kind of things that we can use anywhere at any time.
Yeah, we're gonna explore into that in a little bit, and I want to talk more about your coping strategies and the things that you did and some more of your personal journey. So I'll let the audience know that they can look forward to that in a little bit. And we don't have the Kleenex out today either, so
Fair.
The curiosity I have is around the culture in that, helping field, in that first responders field, that led to the need to cope. So what was the culture like? What was the experience like that made you feel like you couldn't share, express, explore how you were feeling or what was going on?
We've learned a lot of lessons. Just like in anything in our industry, we've learned a lot about equipment. We bettered ourselves with better trucks, better gear. We've prepared ourselves physically. It makes a lot of sense, and it's no problem physically. Spiritually and mentally, it becomes a massive obstacle, because we've learned lessons from our generations past, fathers, grandfathers, and so on, and in our job, former captains, chiefs, and so on, that we're a little more hard-nosed. They'll tell us these stories about, well, I've been to much worse, or those kind of things where if they're wearing a gold stripe and you're a 6-month person on the job, there's a little bit for you to stand up against someone that says, I've been to worse. You're okay. And I think the one thing that we have to be careful with is everyone's got their own path, and we have no idea what that person's been through in their upbringing, or if they've come from military, or they've come from anywhere else, a possible abuse as a child, where they have been predisposed to these kind of injuries, and the moral injuries are very difficult because you can't see them.
Okay.
I think did I answer your question?
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say is it's kind of a one-upping, rub some dirt in it. I've seen worse. Get up, shake it off. You'll kind of move ahead and do the next thing while we're looking at how to create more safety and more equipment and more things, but not necessarily looking at the psychosocial, spiritual part of healing. And then you had said earlier something about the whole person, and seeing that there's a whole person here. It's not just a firefighter.
And if I can expand on that.
Sure.
There's, and I've said this to many people in the industry, we will keep ourselves physically fit. It makes sense. It makes our job easier. But are we doing the complete package? Are we mentally fit? Or are we just coping? And what I mean by that, when I say to other firefighters who I've talked to, we've been given, and our department's done an amazing job at this, in our union as well, extremely good benefits for opening up, for seeing people like yourself, for counseling, for therapy, just to unload, as my therapist would say, just if people would come in and unload what's in their trunk. Don't lift the heavy rocks. Just start to open up a little bit. We can start to relax a little more, and you're not holding on so much. So I say to firefighters, I said, we've been given benefits. We've been given many opportunities to reach out for help. And are you being the best firefighter, father, mother, person that you can be with what's available for you? Mm-hmm. Are you being, and I use the analogy, but it's true. If your 20-year-old daughter was a firefighter, mm-hmm. and she's gone through a rough period, would you give her the same advice you're using? Mm-hmm. Or would you direct her to counseling? Mm-hmm. And if so, why aren't you doing it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like, talking about the heavy rocks. It's not always about digging out and taking out these things where you think it's like, I got to dive right into childhood trauma, or I got to fix something that's wrong with me and then everything will be better. But it's usually those little things. It's something I say regularly is you don't want to put 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag, right? That's right. It starts to get pretty messy and stinky after a while. Yeah. So we have to manage that and take care of that. What are the things that you're seeing now that people are able to use to regulate? You said there's some good benefits. Is there anything else that you're recognizing in the change over the last little while that's allowing people to maybe take some of those smaller rocks, or not just within the fire department, but within the culture, society?
It's a great question. We have an assistant deputy chief who's a front runner for mental health. Mm-hmm. He's had speeches at chiefs conferences. Mm-hmm. So we're very truly blessed to have someone that not only buys in. Mm. I think the one thing that not only with the stigma, we also think that we can't ignore is there's some people that just don't believe it exists. Mm. So they'll look at PTSD, for example, which I'm diagnosed with, and not understand it because they don't feel it. Mm-hmm. And since there's a non-belief, it becomes hard to get people to buy in to why should I be more proactive when I don't feel anything. Mm-hmm. But we are, like I said, our deputy chief, Gary Bridge, has been absolutely a front runner for our health and advocating. He's done, for me personally and for a few others, he'll drive a couple hours out of on a morning to go get us the help we need in certain programs.
Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds like I need to have Gary on the show here.
You do. Absolutely.
We'll put it on the radar. We'll tell Shane to cue it up for us.
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome. So it sounds like that there's some progression, some things happening, moving in the right direction. You had mentioned something off camera prior to about a support group and participating in the support group. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. I belong to the First Responder PTSD Recovery Group, mm-hmm. which is in London, and we have correction officers, military, police, communicators. We have in our world, fire prevention, firefighters, paramedics. There's many different walks, mm-hmm. but the thing with the group and what makes it amazing is that we've all walked a similar path. Mm-hmm. And with trauma and with healing, there's a huge trust is important, and it's overlooked a lot of times when we can be put in front of a doctor or we get put in front of someone that we don't know, mm-hmm. and we need a little bit to open up. Mm-hmm. This group does that. We meet, a few times a month in the city, and we keep a privacy just because of first responding, especially mm-hmm. with police. But we learn from each other. Mm-hmm. We learn grounding. We learn, some of them have service dogs, so we learn what that's about. Mm-hmm. And it takes, I can walk into that room and feel immediately grounded, feel supported, and feel understood, most importantly.
Awesome. The power of peer support is unparalleled, and we'll touch on that in a minute. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Mark. Welcome back to Stirring Strength, and we're having a great conversation with Mark Rusciolelli. And Mark, prior to the break, we were talking about peer support. And you also had some mentions of your own journey and having PTSD or even substance use concerns. And I would love it if you would be willing to kind of share some of your own story and your own journey and what led you to be sitting in this chair today, at a little bit more of a personal level opposed to talking about firefighting.
Sure. I've, like I mentioned, firefighter since '01. And in 2014, I was on a bike accident at Fanshawe Lake, and I broke my neck.
Okay, wow.
And led to 6 months in a collar. Very lucky. I broken my neck to just about far enough where it was just at the stage where the neurologist said, you're close to paralysis. And very fortunate. But it did send me back, and I learned about concussion and took the programs at Parkwood and post-concussion. And during those times, it challenged my marriage. When I broke my neck, my wife had just miscarried, and my mom had died within a 6-week period.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a lot. And I tell people that and I use a Jenga tower to kind of say if life's about moving the things up when they happen, life events, the tower gets taller. And I said, a lot of people look at my broken neck as why I have the trauma. And I said, you're right, that is part of it. But it's not the whole picture. The tower got weaker from what I was doing. And I said that the tower can actually get stronger the more support I have, the more I reach out for help. I can solidify it. So I started to numb out with alcohol. I wasn't missing work because of it. But I was going through many years of post-concussive and was ready for a return to work in 2017. I had a head-on collision, and it knocked me again back with a concussion. Went through a divorce that year, and I used to look at these as excuses as to why I would drink and why I would numb out, and now I look at them as I was trying, doing what I could to get by. I would definitely change a few things there, but as I got into the pandemic and became more isolated, I was in psychotherapy at the time, and she couldn't diagnose me as PTSD, but I was getting worse even through therapy, that I wasn't getting the proper therapy that I needed. So again, I would continue to numb out, and I'd seen a hepatologist, had started the cirrhosis of my liver. And that was a red flag, not red enough that I didn't say to him immediately, do I have to stop drinking?
Yellow flag.
Yeah, yellow
That's
flag.
a hepatitis joke. But,
That's true. Well played. And he said, that's the first question you have for me. And I said, well, how else am I supposed to keep everything at bay? How am I supposed to function if this is the self-medicated way was what I taught myself? And even though my liver was giving out, my brain was still saying, I still need to be able to do this. Instead of still getting the help at that time, that's like 5 or 6 years ago now, the help that I needed. And it wasn't till a few years ago where I had kind of an epiphany, a breakthrough, and I finally did get diagnosed with PTSD, and I started to get the help I needed. And also gave up the alcohol. I'm now 15 months sober.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, with the help of AA, this program, again, another trusted space, similar to that first responding group. AA, as I've said to many guys people have reached out and asked me about it, I said it's a high form of self-care. It's still got a stigma to some people, including myself, before I needed it. But it's actually saying to your friends, your family, that I'm taking care of myself so I can be who I am and continue to function and improve and live life.
Yeah.
So the gift of sobriety has been a game changer for me. That coupled with therapy has given me a chance at returning to some kind of to work. I still have very difficult days, and I still get anxious and use some of my coping and grounding techniques, which I can talk about. But it's given me a life again. I have 2 dogs. I live in a nice house in Old North in the city, and I'm very appreciative for the support I have both from my union, my firefighters, AA, first responding group as a whole, and my spirituality, as if you know how the 12 steps work, and being able to learn to pray and to be grateful has changed my life.
So many questions from that. You had said something about having a fear of the stigma from AA and the 12-step process, and there was some stigma there. Can you share a little bit about what that looked like? I believe that there's a lot of people in the audience watching these things, and there's a lot of barriers to that type of peer support, AA, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be AA, but that peer support. And the biggest barrier is some of that stigma. If you could really, kind of just share, what it was and how you overcame it, that would be great.
So the hepatologist was the yellow flag, but what to do next was my choice. That was free will. I was extremely nervous and went with a family member to my first meeting, and I'd been praying for a relationship with this person for a while, and he'd called and said, I'm thinking about going to AA. So it was, and I say it was a gift from God, I feel like it truly was. And then, so to walk into the first meeting, I thought, I'll do this program. I'm going to be a wallflower. I'm not going to say anything. I'll sit and drink this coffee and just go through meetings. White knuckle it, as they call it. And that lasted for about a month. The big part, Dean, that I find, and I belong to a group that really welcomes newcomers, so it's really great. We get to see people change, within week to week to the first month of sobriety's massive change.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I recall, I see myself from 15 months ago, and I think about how anxious I was to walk in that room. And there are a lot of people that say that I drove around the building for the first week. I didn't go in. I just went there, scoped it out, and couldn't walk in. And it's true, our bodies can get flushed full of cortisol, we can get stressed, and it not be convinced to go in. That's probably the biggest thing I've found in AA, and including myself, was admitting we needed that help. I can't do this alone. And once I did that, I had people in my life, I have new friends that would give me the shirt off their back. And not only does it become reassuring, you truly get to know people and strangers that, from only weeks ago that you feel like you've known for years. You're that comfortable with them.
That's connecting with people like that sure is a fast way to knock down some stigma and knock down some perceptions and ideas of what we think something is, eh?
Absolutely. And I'd heard that quote not long ago, that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. And I love that, because that's, in my life, that's 100% true. So finding that connection for you sounds like it's all-encompassing. Part of AA, part of peer support, part of, sounds like family dogs. Yes, absolutely.
Finding that connection in other ways has become very valuable.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what's the next steps? So we try to keep things most of the time very present and looking at how we're doing right now, but we have to look at, there's a direction and growth. And I recognize you saying that I still have hard days, I still have things going. So for you, what does the journey look like? What does the, and we don't have to, Mark, what's your 5-year plan, right? But in a broad sense, what does the future look like when dealing with substance use and PTSD and that sort of thing?
So for me, I've become a lover of books.
Okay.
I read audiobooks. I always had difficulty focusing and reading, and loved sports and movies. And I attribute now, my brain is attributing that with kind of the gluttonous ending of where I was drinking still. So to sit and watch a full day of football on a Sunday kind of takes me back to where I would eat horrible, make bad decisions, drink alcohol, veg out, numb out. Instead, now I've become lover of knowledge. I'm reading a lot on trauma. I'm reading a lot on spirituality, a lot of philosophy, which is extremely helpful to learn that, life's going to happen and it depends what we want to engage in. And I feel that I've lost my point. I feel
You're talking about the consumption of knowledge and just taking all those things in as part of your plan and goal for the future.
Right. So what I'm working on right now is I'm currently a training instructor with London Fire, and I would love to come back in some role. The percentage-wise that for first responders is 6 to 8% that return to work. So the odds are stacked heavy against me. But I feel not only with my sobriety, I don't have any other things that I take. I feel like I'm giving myself the best chance. Through other first responders, I've learned cold exposure, which I use daily. I'm in the cold tub. I use breath work. Not only is it effective at home, it can be effective in traffic. You can use that anywhere, and people can't really tell what you're doing. So I advocate for that, and it's really what's helped change me and my anxiety when I walk into rooms. The other thing that I think that not even my whole family truly understands is kind of the exposure. After healing for so long, and I spent a good year basically inside my house being really anxious to go out, not healed, not understanding what was happening, I've now started to come out. Even going to church in the beginning, I couldn't make it through the doors. I was too anxious. I was literally getting sick, both going to places and before I was diagnosed at work, I was literally throwing up on the training grounds. And as I've came to find out, it's one of the top GI issues are a trauma symptom. Sure. And I wouldn't have understood that. So it's truly for me, Dean, understanding not only is it amazing to read, it allows you to be creative, it allows you to think. I'm trying to journal. I journal a little bit. But I find that powerful as well, to take stuff from head to page on a day where you can just not have to unload on anyone else, but you can kind of diffuse by just dropping it on a page. It's powerful.
Awesome. I agree. Yeah. So lots of great stuff. The end there, just kind of wrapping in, throwing it all together is, it's like what Mark's saying is you don't learn how to not do something. You learn by doing things, and you submerge yourself and you educate yourself and you participate in those ways. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today, Mark. We'll continue this conversation after, and hopefully in the future keep doing the work that you're doing, the advocacy work, and best of luck. Thanks for being on the show. Thank you for watching Stirring Strength, and we'll see you next time.